great thing about projects created in Cadasio is they can be viewed on any modern internet-enabled device. This, however, brings in problems, as different devices have different screen sizes and may be viewed in different orientations, giving them different aspect ratios. So let's take this simple project I have here to run through how we get around this. I've created this on a normal HD PC monitor, so 1920 by 1080, and I'm happy with how it looks and everything fits great. But how do I know it'll still look good if someone views this on a phone or a tablet? This is where devices come in. Found in the top right hand corner of your designer window, you can change between devices to get an understanding of how things will look. Using the drop down, I can see any devices I have. Everyone starts with a basic phone and tablet. Let's pick tablet. You'll notice the designer changes. The scene is now smaller, representing the aspect ratio of the device that I chose, and the 2D items have been scaled so you can get an idea of how they will look. So actually, for a tablet, in this orientation at least, the view doesn't look too bad. I'd perhaps increase the text size, but everything fits on, and for now I'm happy with it. However, in device mode, we can toggle between portrait and landscape orientation, as that will change the aspect ratio. That's done with this icon here. And in this example, if I change to portrait, you'll see things don't look too good. Not only is the text too small, but anything that goes in the grey area will not be seen on a device with this aspect ratio. So we need to sort this out. When in device mode, if I make changes and then update a step, it doesn't overwrite the original step's properties, but rather makes a set of device properties. Then when the project is viewed in a device, it uses those properties as well as the default. So, if for example we had created a project and it had 5 steps, and I'd created this on my computer and I'm happy with them and they look great. If I now wanted it to look good on, say, a phone, I'd set my device to phone and run through each step. Now some steps may look fine, but perhaps I decide that step 2 needs adjusting. I'd change whatever needed changing. This could be hiding things, changing sizes, colours, showing things, anything I want really, and I would update the device properties. Then, when it is viewed in that particular device, Cadasio will activate step 2 and set its properties, but then realise it's being viewed on a phone and look for any device properties which match the aspect ratio and then use them on top. Therefore you can see that device properties overwrite the default. So let's test this out. So obviously here it doesn't look too good, so let's adjust a few of these. Let's make them a bit bigger and make sure they're fitting in our scene. Let's perhaps change the font size of everything to make it slightly bigger. Maybe something like that, and adjust them again. Great, so that looks at least a lot better than it did. You'll notice when I'm in a device, the update icon has changed. So you can tell you're in device mode. I'm just going to hit update. And that will have saved the device properties for my tablet in a portrait orientation. If I come off devices by using the drop down and go into none, you'll see the scene goes back to how it was when I first started. Any changes I make to the device properties won't affect the default properties. However, because it applies these default properties first before the device properties, you'll see if I change the background colour, for example, let's make it slightly green, and update the default properties, when I now go back to my tablet, you'll see that that too has got the green background because it applies the default properties and then applies the device properties, and because in the device properties I didn't tell it anything about the background, it's just kept the standard default properties. It's worth pointing out that you may not need to do this for every step. And if there aren't any device properties for a particular step, it just uses the default. But you may end up having several device properties for a single step. So you may have a portrait set of device properties and then a landscape set of device properties. Cadasio will automatically detect which orientation you're in with which aspect ratio and pick the appropriate properties. Or you may have a step that you set up some properties for a portrait phone, but it looks great on a landscape phone. But then you may want to adjust it slightly for a tablet, so you can mix and match and be really flexible to ensure you get exactly what you want from your project. The phone and tablet devices that come built in with Cadasio are just the most common aspect ratios of the current phones and tablets on the market. However, you may have a particular phone in mind, and to further complicate matters, the aspect ratio of your device relates to the full screen. And depending on your browser that you view Cadasio projects in, you may not have the full screen available to you because different browsers have different toolbars and different options set. In which case, you can make your own device with a specific aspect ratio. Back in the designer, if I choose the icon in the top right hand corner here and click it, you'll see we get the device window pop up, and from here we can pick which is the current active device, and that will change it just the same as the drop down, or we can even create a new one. We just have to put a name in and we give it a landscape aspect ratio and a portrait aspect ratio. If you've got a device and you're not sure of its aspect ratio, we have a simple helper page to help you determine the current size in your browser. If you click the link here, it will take you to a page that you can access from on any device. It's an open page, and it'll tell you your current screen space available to you. So in this case, 1920 by 1080, because I'm in a browser that's full screen. I can toggle full screen and the text will update accordingly. Creating your own device is also really useful if you plan on embedding your project in an iframe on your own website. Just put the size of the iframe in and the aspect ratio will come out the wash, and that way you can make sure it looks great on your page. If you're going to style your page so that your iframe changes based on CSS rules, make a device for each media query that you've got, and then you know it'll always look good. So hopefully you can see that devices are really useful to get past problems with viewing on different devices. Whilst you could do an entire project with just a single set of device properties, perhaps a phone, my general workflow would be to create the steps as usual with no devices, and then activate device mode and go through each step to make sure you're happy and update it where required. Generally, the things that you're going to need to adjust will be the 2D toolbox items and the scenes camera. Despite how good it may look in device mode on Cadasio, I would always recommend you test your project on an actual device, as differences in browsers and operating systems can have an effect that we cannot simulate in Cadasio. Okay, hopefully you found this video useful. If you have any questions, head over to our forum, and you can find us on all the usual social media sites.